Hey everyone, Corey and I are back. Say hi, Corey.
Hey, how's it going?
And today we're going to just do one fairly simple task in our game Daemon Claw here. And as longtime viewers might remember, what we discussed doing is adding a sort of cool-off meter to disallow the player to constantly spam their powerful magic attacks. Because once we gave, especially the sort of lightning powers for the snow level to the player, it broke gameplay where he could just keep spamming these really powerful attacks and just defeat the enemies and get through the level too easily. And even before then, there's the sort of air bash attack that you could just keep spamming while in the air over and over and over again. So adding a meter and the concept that you've got this magical gauntlet that gives you magical powers, but every time you do a magical attack, it's going to drain that meter. Maybe not fully, like each attack will drain it a different amount depending on how powerful the attack is. And then you'll have to wait for the meter to fill back up before you can do that attack again. So in anticipation of finally doing that, Corey and I quickly got together before recording this and got the core of it working, and I'm going to explain exactly how we did that. And really astute visual viewers might notice I nudged over these health meter boxes a little bit to give more room and to balance out the HUD better. And I moved the word score over as well to space things out a little more evenly to make room for this meter itself. And then the meter is simply a tiled background object, so I just made sure I was on the HUD layer, double-clicked, and I chose tiled background. And what that allowed me to do, and then I just made it a very small image, and which is going to be tiled, and just quickly picked a color to use. And then, so the nice thing is the way we made this code work so far, I can drag it to any size I need or feel like to make it fit, and I can adjust this at any time. And you'll see if I run the level, we should see the meter fill up to 100%. And then if I decide to adjust it, if we changed the HUD so that this was the width of the full meter, you'll see that in the same way and in the same exact amount of time, it's going to fill up to the new size. So that was a little bit of extra code that just makes it really nice and easy for the game designer or artist to tweak. And then the other thing that's related to that we did was make sure, see, we were kind of lucky. We could have been a little lazier, and it just worked out for us that the size of the meter works really well at exactly 40 pixels, and we could have just used a hard-coded number 40 as the full meter. But then that wouldn't allow us to make easy last-minute adjustments whenever we feel like it to visually what the full width meter looks like. Or let's say we eventually wanted to port this whole game or game engine to a resolution where everything was twice as high resolution. Then we'd have to go in and fix that hard-coded number everywhere. So it's worth the extra effort to make things work based on a percentile. So we're going to be draining that meter and adding to that meter based on percentiles instead of based on the hard-coded width number 40, which is the lazy thing we could have done. So now I will explain how we did this. So I just created this tiled object, gave it a sensible name so we could find it fairly easily when we're coding. And then in anticipation of wanting to let the players adjust it whenever they want right in the editor, what I did was I gave it its own instance variable called full width, and then I just arbitrarily set it to -1 by default, because at the start of layout it's going to get set to the actual width, which is the first thing we do. So in gameplay events, these are the 3 events we added for the meter to work. And so we do on start of layout, we set the width of the cool-off meter, which is that tiled background object. We set its value, full width, to the actual width of the object. So whatever the artist or game designer made this with, as you can see here, that's 74. At the start of the layout, it would set that value called full width to 74 instead of -1. Back here. And then what we're doing is every tick we are setting the actual width of the cool-off meter, and then we have an equation here. And it's that value, full width, which would be, in this case now that I changed it, 74, but usually 40, times, and then magic meter, so we added another global value for this meter, and this global value is going to be based on percentile, so it's just going from 0 to 100. 0 is completely empty, 100 is 100% full. So because we want that nice organic, we could just use 0 to 1.0 and then do it with fractions. But just for the human mind, it's just nicer to go with 100% or 50%. So we're doing this little tiny multiply by 0.01 to take that 100 number and make it a decimal. For example, if the magic meter value is at 50, which would be 50%, that would convert it to 0.5. So if you can imagine, if the full width we want of the full meter is 40 pixels, then if we multiply the 50%, if the meter is half full, then that would be times 0.5, which would be 20 pixels. So I hope I explained that decently. And then the last thing we're doing here, this event just every 10th of a second, and this is completely arbitrary. This is one of the things that we'll tweak once we get it all working and tie it into gameplay. Every 10th of a second, if the magic meter value is, which is what percent full it is, if it's less than 100% full, then we add 1 to that percentile. So it adds a percent every 10th of a second to fill that meter up. And so this event is going to get a little more complicated once we get it all tied into the gameplay, but that's the general idea. Eventually I'm just going to add a condition here that only does this when you definitely have the magic gauntlet, because you don't want that magic meter filling up if you don't even have the magic gauntlet yet. But since I wanted to test it and make sure the math was all working properly, there we go. And as you remember, I dragged it out to be 74 pixels wide, which is why it doesn't look right. But yeah, so just so we could test it immediately without me having to go play and earn the gauntlet, I did not add that stipulation yet that it should only keep refilling if you have the magic gauntlet, if you've earned it in that level. So let's just put this back to 40. Is all my rambling making sense so far, Corey?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Definitely. Just making sure. So I might as well save my progress. And so now we're ready to actually start tying it into gameplay. So what I think I want to do, and we can always undo this later, but what makes the most sense to me is to make it really obvious immediately to the player that this meter is directly tied in to the magical attacks of the gauntlet. And once you get the gauntlet, every attack has a magical effect. So what I want to do is make the meter always be refilling if it's slightly empty at a steady pace. And even your most basic attacks, because they are now magical, it'll drain your meter a little bit, but it replenishes fast enough so that's never an issue. And you really have to hyper spam your regular attacks to actually drain your meter in a substantial way, whereas the powerful magical attacks will drain your meter much more. So it'll make it really obvious it's just tied in to this magical ability of the gauntlet, and it'll be real obvious, oh, if I use any attack it's going to drain a little, but it'll grow back fast enough for regular attacks, and that'll stop them from being too powerful in gameplay and breaking the gameplay. And then to finally tie it all together with the magical energy, right now when you kill enemies, it releases two kind of magical energy, one that earns you health replenishment orbs, and the other that just gives you the magic orbs that give you the gauntlet in the first place or power it up. So those magical ones that give you the gauntlet, what I'm thinking of doing is making it so every time you collect one, it gives you back like 1 or 2% of your meter as well. So it'll make it even easier to earn back your meter quickly to do powerful attacks, but it'll get rid of that ability to just spam it every half second. And it just completely ties in the concept of, okay, this meter is directly tied in to the magic power level of the gauntlet and this whole cool-off idea. So that's what we need to do in this video, is just find all of the events that have to do with attacks once you have the gauntlet and make it drain the meter by whatever percent we decide. And then after we get that all working, it's just a matter of tweaking those numbers until we really feel like it's perfect for gameplay. But we won't do all the tweaking in this video. We just want to show you how we get the functionality working, and we'll do the tweaking off video as to not waste everyone's time. So we're going to go into gameplay events, and we just need to start searching. I can click the events tab here, and we can just start searching for things that we know. Here's some stuff. Okay, unpunch triggered. There we go. power level equals 1, all of this stuff. So what I can do, so I don't have to add it to every last one of these, I'm just going to copy and paste this, and I'm going to change it to power level is greater than 0. That means we definitely have the gauntlet, and we're going to get rid of this stuff, and we're simply going to now subtract from that global value we made called magic meter. This is the percentile thing. So like, let's say we take off 2% arbitrarily. So now once we have the magic, we're going to take 2 away from the meter. And again, to test it, I think what I'll do, I'll negate this, I'll invert, no, not invert it, toggle disabled, and I think I'll make this more obvious too, so we'll just really make it hurt. I just want to make sure that the logic is working. So now when I throw a punch, there, you see it draining? And as you can see, it refills really fast currently, so it's really going to be a matter of tweaking those numbers, but it's working. So now that we know it's working, we can go back and we can enable that and make that less aggressive. I guess I'll make it 5% for now. So that part is working for basic attacks only if you have the magic. So that's all set. So now we have to find the actual powerful attacks. Power level is 0. Oh, okay, so that's what we could check is power level, because that should be tied in directly with any attack that has the magic. So that should make it real easy for us to find all the events we need to add a subtraction to for the percentile. So punch. There we go. So here's another one, and we can literally just copy this sub-event that we just created, paste it in here, put it up on top so it logically makes sense. And this is one of the more powerful attacks, so we want it to actually stop people from spamming, so we can make it really aggressively subtract. So I need to look for air bash. And what we're going to need to do, I'm thinking it'll take a little more setup time, but in the long run it'll save us time when we do all the tweaking. I'm going to create a couple more global variables. Air bash requirement. So this is going to be how many magic percentile points we're going to need to do the air bash. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah.
And then we'll do the same thing for uppercut. Because otherwise, the different event sheets for different levels with different magics for uppercut and air bash and stuff like that. And we'd have to go into every event sheet and keep retweaking the hard-coded number we're deciding every time we want to try to balance the gameplay, which could be just really time-consuming. So this way, we just need to change these global values. So that's going to make things a lot easier for us.
I guess we would maybe need one for the drop kick as well, right? Because it can do special moves.
Exactly. Yeah. Good point. Yep. So drop kick requirement, and yeah, we'll just keep them all at 50 for now to keep things simple, because we just want to get the functionality working. All right. So now we are going to do that search again for power level, and so we've got the punch. Punch, we want him to always be able to punch, so we're not even going to bother adding that event. You know what I mean? Because like if it doesn't replenish enough for him to punch, we've just got the numbers wrong for how quickly the meter refills or how much a punch empties out the meter.
Right.
So right here where we have 50 for air bash, we're going to do the global value air bash requirement. Okay. So now we need to go into the events for specific levels and hunt down those events. Level 2 and power level. So we're just looking for the actual triggering of those animations. Alright, so Thunderbolt, this is one of the specific ones. So right here, we need to add a stipulation. We'll just copy this. and edit it. So we're checking global value magic meter is greater or equal to, and this is for Thunderbolt, which is, I think that's the uppercut equivalent for this level, right? Like you trigger it with the uppercut, I believe. I'll double check.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the uppercut. Yep.
All right, so uppercut requirement. There we go. So they have to have at least as much meter percentile as is required to do the move in the first place. And then, of course, we also need to subtract. Once it does trigger that move, we're going to subtract from magic meter, and it's going to be that same value, uppercut requirement. So this is just going to make it so easy to tweak for gameplay. We just change those global values and everything is working properly. Uppercut requirement. There we go, nice and tidy. Okay, so what other moves can you do as this guy?
There was...
He definitely has an air bash, but that's in global values. And then there's the basic punch. Is that it?
I think the drop kick gets enhanced. I mean, pretty much all the moves get enhanced for each set. So.
Yeah, that's true. But do we want to limit the drop kick so much that you can't do a drop kick at all? Like, that's something you inherently can't spam it, because you have to jump in the air, and then when you initiate it, you fly down to the ground fast, and then you have to land and stuff like that, and then jump again to do it again. So, I mean, we do want it to drain the meter, but not so much that you can't do it again as soon as you want to. But again, that's just a matter of tweaking the numbers, I suppose.
Yeah, the meter could mostly be for just the most powerful spammable attack you have. I mean, because even the bash, didn't we build in like a way for you to only do it once in the air? Like, or something like that? Yeah, so... that would likely refill before you got to do it again anyways, just like the drop kick. So
set animation to thunder kick. Here it is. So power level equals. So same thing here. We need to actually subtract. And this is drop kick requirement. So we're going to subtract from magic meter. And then drop kick requirement. I think that's what we call it. Yep. And then here we need to do that check. So I'm going to copy and paste this global value check, and then do magic meter is greater or equal to drop kick requirement. So as long as that's true, you can do the move, which should be pretty much always anyway, and that's a matter of us tweaking the numbers correctly. And then if you can do it, then do the move, and then subtract that amount from the meter percentile-wise. And I think that does it for level 2. So, I mean, before we go too far, it kind of makes sense. Let me double check level 1 again. In level 1's own events, let's see what there is for a kick. Drop kick. So, does he have any kind of magical drop kick type thing going on for
yeah, he does like the meteor shot.
Yeah, okay.
So, I believe instead of the drop kick.
Yeah. Okay, uppercut fire. Okay, so here's the magic uppercut one. So we need to add it here. So we're going to subtract from magic meter. And we're going to subtract. This is the uppercut. So uppercut requirement. Done. And we're going to do that check in the first place. Magic meter is greater or equal to uppercut requirement. Alright, and then we'll look for power level, search, uppercut, shoot fire. Alright, here it is. Shoot downward. Same thing here. Gonna subtract from, there it is, magic meter. And then this is the drop kick, right? In this case. And then add the check here. And this should be magic meter is greater or equal to drop kick requirement. So now level 1 and level 2 should work in full, minus, of course, the fact that we'll have to tweak numbers eventually. But, so let me clear this. Let me go into gameplay events and recheck here. So now let's actually add it so that the meter doesn't refill unless you have the gauntlet. So just going to add a chat, add another condition, and we're going to compare variable, which is power level, and it's got to be greater than 0. So it's 0 when you have no gauntlet earned, and it's greater than 0 when you have a power level of the gauntlet. So theoretically, not level 1 boss, level 1, okay. So now this should all actually function the way we want, other than tweaking the numbers. Let's see how it does.
Alright.
Alright, so...
Not there.
Yeah. And eventually, of course, we might update the HUD to make a permanent frame for where it belongs. Alright, about to earn it. Nice. There we go, we got the power. And it fills up. Very
Nice.
And it drains, but refills insanely quickly. Very nice.
And I guess you can test
Nice.
Yeah, yep. No.
Yeah, I can still spam it, so it's a matter of, right now it just refills way too fast.
Right.
But functionally, it is working exactly as we want it to. It's just all that critically important, adjusting the numbers until it all works for gameplay. So in fact, I mean, we're going to be doing the exact same thing with the other levels, so we might as well do that off screen as well.
Right.
Because now everything is working. Alright, we were in the middle of tweaking numbers, and we found a very fun bug in level 1, where we clearly forgot something, so we just want to show you this bug. It's kind of fun. Oh, get it! Oh, of course, now that I need to show people I'm playing terribly.
Right.
I'm gonna die before it shows up. There we go. Okay.
Ugh.
So now you can spam this twice. But what was the attack that we could? Oh yeah, it was the air bash. There we go. Look, the meter goes backwards. So obviously we don't have the limiter on there to make sure you can only do it if you have enough power for level 1. So we just need to go into level 1's events, and we need to find Air Bash, I think is the name of it.
I think for that one, it might be in universal events. I think what we're doing is changing just the effect for the air bash.
That would explain why we didn't find it too the first time.
Right.
So Air Bash. Air Bash. Okay, yep. So here it is. We do the subtraction, which is why it was going negative and the meter was getting giant in the reverse direction. But what we don't do is have the check in the first place. So the way to fix that is to make all of these a sub-event of that important check. So we're going to do is power level greater than 0, and we're going to add that check right here, where we're going to say, is the magic meter greater or equal to, and then this is going to be the air bash requirement. So now what we need to do is make all of these sub-events or subordinate to that. So it'll definitely do the regular air bash, and then if your power level is greater than 0 and you have enough energy, it'll subtract it from the meter and it'll do all the necessary stuff. So that should fix that bug. And let's see if I continue to play horribly. Seem to be doing okay this time. There we go. Alright. Nope, we can still spam it, but that's just because we're not taking away enough energy. Right. But we can do it. Oh, interesting. Oh, you can still do it, but it doesn't do the magic. Interesting.
Oh, but it does
the normal one. Well, that's because it just suddenly had enough magical energy. So that actually, functionally, that's probably what we want. Like, it would be kind of silly if you didn't have enough to do the magical version of the attack, and you did nothing and got yourself hit like a dummy, like no matter what,
Right.
you still want to do the air bash move. So
But,
we just need the
but
visual.
spamming it that quickly, I mean, do we want that? You know?
Right.
That's-
The fact that you can still spam it at all. Right.
Right.
No, that's a good point. We do want
I mean,
to
of
make
course,
it so,
that's sort of a different
different
thing
issue.
than
It's not
yeah.
tied into the magic. So yeah. Okay. That bug is fixed. The other thing that we had to do is I changed the event. If you look here, what we're doing is, in order to be able to really carefully tweak how slowly or quickly the magic meter fills up, we went into decimals. And in order to be really safe, to make sure, because we definitely want the meter to fill up perfectly to 100%, however many pixels that is. And what I did was, if magic meter is less than 100%, instead of add 1%, now because we're doing a percentile, what I did was I set the magic meter value to a minimum of either 100, which is 100%, or the current value plus 0.25%. So the whole reason we made this formula more complicated is, let's say we eventually changed the value so it was something like 1.25%. You might end up with a meter going over 100%, and there'd be no way to correct that. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah.
So that's it for now. We're just going to do a little bit more tweaking off camera, and then we'll come back and then show you how it's looking, and then do that one last feature. All right, we are back. We've done as much tweaking as we really need to do for this session, so we could show you how it's working so far. All right, so meter, and currently, just for testing again, it fills up even when you don't have the power, but that's not really that relevant at the moment.
Right.
And then we will add an action to make it so that as soon as you grab the gauntlet power up and get the gauntlet in the first place, we'll make it so that your power goes up to 100 instantly at that point. Let's see. Or at least we might do that if it makes sense for gameplay. Okay, so now worst case scenario, if you have a completely full meter, you can double spam, so to speak, this powerful attack. 1, 2. But then you can't do it anymore, so I think that's actually fine, and it lets people kind of suffer for a bad decision, because if you did this magical attack, the enemies below you are already dead, so you would have just wasted your ability to do magical attacks when you really need them for a couple of seconds if you do that double spam. So I think that's actually fine. There's a flaming uppercut, that's cool, so that works too. Oh yeah, I never fixed that collision box issue in the spriter file for when you do the move.
Right.
But as you could see, even though I was playing poorly, it was working great, and then we'll go to level 2. Now that you see it's working, it's going to be the same thing, just adding the check for if you have enough magic energy to initiate the move, and then subtracting that amount with that same variable from the magic meter value. Darn it. I can't talk and play at the same time. And let's see here.
I guess you wouldn't make a great Let's Player, maybe?
Definitely
I don't know.
not. Alright. So now, this was the game breaker, and now you can't double spam it at all. And let's make it the more powerful version if I can survive long enough so that we could really see if we fixed the sort of accidental god mode. Nice. Yep, you can't double spam it, and then if you do, in relatively quick succession, you have to wait quite a few seconds before you can do it again.
Cool.
So much better. Alright, excellent.
Yeah, it's going to add that challenge
Yeah.
it needs.
It's one more thing to pay attention to and strategize while you're doing a fast-paced game. So yeah, it's really starting to feel like a fun and challenging game. So now what we need to do is just go into the gameplay events.
Yeah.
All right, let me just go into the spriter thing so that I can accidentally
Is it
run
just
this
power
layout.
level? Like power level 0? Or?
It certainly could be. So earned health energy, earned magic energy. So this is the important thing here. And then gameplay event. There we go. Right here. So right at this moment, we'll just add, and actually, I'm going to remember what line, 188. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another global value to make this easy to tweak as well, and that's going to be orb cool off replenish. That's long-winded, but gets the job done. All right, so it should not be 0, that's for sure. So we'll just make it 2% for now. Now we'll make it 5%, just to make it clearly visible. All right, and then so it's, I think 188, I said? 188. Here it is. So set value, magic meter. We have to recreate that equation. Set magic meter to itself plus that new variable we created, which was that long-winded orb cool off replenish. But we need that formula, 100 comma, and then minimum. So this makes sure it doesn't go over 100. And then it's itself plus, and then whatever we set that value to be, which right now is 5. So we're adding 5%. I think that is what we wanted to accomplish for this video. We'll probably add a little frame to this at some point, which will just be adding a sprite in the background with like this white frame treatment so that we can animate that sprite in the background and make it flash red for a second or whatever, just so that it's really easy to give that visual feedback when there's a situation going on. When you've replenished it more quickly, we could make it flash like white or blue, and when you don't have enough energy to do the particular magic move you just tried, we could make it flash red, and maybe do like some kind of audio cue as well that it won't work. And then I think for most gameplay we're going to make it so that your move will default to the non-magic version if you don't have enough magic energy. That makes the most sense to me. And then eventually we have to figure out how to make it so that you can't keep just doing the regular air bash in the sky. You know what? Come to think of it, this is really weird. I could have sworn, now come to think of it, the way we fixed that, is before time wouldn't freeze anymore if you didn't have the magic power. Oh, that's why. Okay, you do have the magic gauntlet. That makes perfect sense. So remember we made it so if you don't have the magic gauntlet, when you do the air bash, you keep falling. And because you keep falling, it's impossible to spam in the air. But now we've got the situation where you can have the magic gauntlet, but you don't have enough magic meter in our cool-off meter. So you do the regular move, but time still pauses. So I'll make a note of that, and we'll fix that in the next video. But we won't bother doing that today. But at least I figured out exactly what is causing that. And I think we will end this video here. Thanks everyone for watching, and thanks Corey as always for helping make these videos much more lively.